How's it going, peeps? My name is Jakejames Lugo, and welcome to the channel. So I wanted to bring a little style and flair to this review because we're gonna get very anime with this one. And no, I'm not talking about the anime like this, but a little bit more anime like this. Anyway, here's my review of Sakura Wars on PlayStation 4. Big thanks to SEGA for sending it over to me. Sakura Wars on PlayStation 4 is a new entry into the ongoing action role-playing series from SEGA. The game originally released in Japan in 2019, featuring artwork from manga artists like Tide Kubo, but we got the game in North America in 2020. If you've never played a Sakura Wars game, it's basically a combination of visual novel, dating simulation, and action RPG gameplay elements. There's fighting with mechs and demons, along with a story about relationships in steampunk Tokyo. I know that's a bit weird for some, but it's worked for the game since 1996. So what's the story here? Sakura Wars acts like a reboot to the entire series, while also being a sequel of sorts to the previous games. In a fictionalized 1940s Tokyo, Japan, Captain Seijiro Kamiyama is transferred over to the Imperial Combat Review Flower Division to be their commanding officer. When he arrives, he meets up with his childhood friend Sakura Amamiya, a member of the Flower Division and a swordsman. He also meets up with an ensemble of ladies that are members of the Flower Division under his command, each with their own wild personalities. The group battles demons who threaten Tokyo on occasion, but on their off time, they put on shows at the Imperial Theater to entertain the people there. But with both their performances taking a nosedive and their combat ability being wildly inconsistent, it's up to Seijiro to bring the team together and turn their luck around. However, in the shadows, a great evil is taking form to bring back horrors from a crisis that's rooted 10 years in the past during the Great Demon War, and it'll be up to the Imperial Combat Review to take a stand against it. Beyond that, the story gets extremely over the top. So if you love anime and like this style of storytelling, then there's something here for you. The music and the visuals are pretty good, but does the charm and the flair of Sakura Wars translate into a fun and interesting game? Now, I did feel like throughout my entire experience, if you didn't know anything about Sakura Wars whatsoever, you wouldn't really get a lot of the little fan service and little nods here and there that are references to older games in the series. If you played at least one of the games, maybe on PlayStation 2 or on Saturn or Dreamcast, then maybe you'd be better off, at least in my personal opinion. As someone who hasn't really played a lot of the Sakura Wars games, I only really played the one on PlayStation 2, which was so long my love, I felt like at least, I had a basis there to kind of, start from and at least appreciate some of the little things that I noticed that were from that game that just happened to appear in Sakura Wars on PlayStation 4. It was just something a little bit extra for me as a fan, at least of that game, even though I'm not well versed in the entire series. Now, speaking on the story, it is very much exactly what you would expect in an anime kind of like this. They kind of get into the harem tropes here and there, and there's a lot of fan servicey moments if you're into anime like that. If you're not really into that type of stuff, maybe this will kind of like stick out to you and you won't really resonate with it as much. But for those that are used to this type of storytelling, it is standard fare, exactly what you would expect. Now, funny enough, it did feel like the game was just overall shorter than what I expected it to be. It just felt like I was running through the chapters pretty quickly in some sections, while others tend to drag on just a little bit. But one thing I do really love is those what's coming up next little sections that you see at the end of every chapter. It's kind of like an anime episode, that little sizzle reel that you get right before the next episode starts. I thought that was pretty cool. It just added to the presentation overall and really feeling like this whole just overall aesthetic of being an anime series. So with all that being said, let's dive into the gameplay of Sakura Wars because there's a lot to unpack here because there's just two different styles of gameplay, and depending on what type of gamer you are, you might resonate with one over the other or vice versa, but let's just get into it and you'll see exactly what I mean. Sakura Wars is such a mixed bag with its gameplay, and a lot of how much you enjoy it will depend on how patient you are with getting through sections you might not like. There are two main parts to the gameplay: the dating sim visual novel section with all of the plot, and the combat sections with all of the action. Unfortunately, the two seldom blend together very well. You'll have to get through a long haul of one type of gameplay in order to engage with the other. The story sections when you're interacting with the girls can really drag. You get to see everyone showcase their personality and how good they look to Seijiro up close, but this can overstay its welcome. These scenes use what's called the lip system, which gives you dialogue options and allows you to change the intensity of some moments when Seijiro is doing something. And yes, it could get very weird in some moments. I found myself just wanting to get through these sections so I could hopefully get to the combat. It definitely got annoying after a while. When I finally did go on a mission, it reminded me heavily of a Musou-style game, where you're taking on legions of enemies and decimating them with your attacks. As you fight enemies, you can build up a meter to launch a powerful attack that usually wipes out the entire area or deals massive damage to bosses. I did have some issues with the camera at first, but a lot of changes were made with the day 1 patch, so it's not a big deal to me anymore. One of my biggest issues with the combat is how enemies are copied over multiple times, and hardly do much when they appear on the stage. Tougher enemies later in the game might hurt you with a powerful attack, but not often before you cut them down all too quickly, including some of the boss fights. My biggest criticism, however, has to be the lack of growth in either part of the game. Apparently your attacks are supposed to get stronger the more that you bond with the different Maidens of the Flower Division, but I hardly noticed a difference throughout my time playing through Sakura Wars. I always felt like I was way overpowered against my enemies. Your allies in combat get a boost when you collect crystals from defeating enemies and smashing crates, but even then I didn't feel like Sejiro or any of the girls got any stronger or changed in any significant way. It felt like there was something missing that could have been a good bridge between both styles of gameplay, and that feeling lingered throughout my entire time playing. When I finally finished the story, each chapter that I played felt monotonous all the way to the end.
こんなの知ったことかよ。お前に聞いてもらいたいことで、ここでお前のことが好きだと言いながら、どれぐらいの力を込めてやればいいんだろう。次。お前のことが好きだ。
何言ってんの？散々私のこと子供扱いしてたくせに。
こんな展開台本にはないぞ。いや、
それを今さら好きだなんて、ただの幼馴染じゃなくなるのずっと待ってた。
まさか。
Now, I do have to mention that I delayed my review just a little bit because there was a day 1 update that SEGA had told me about that was going to come out for the game that changed up a few things, and I wanted to see if this was like really significant or it changed up any of my overall impressions of the game, like just as a whole. And to be honest with you, even though there's certain things that are addressed that are like quality of life changes and certain things that should have been in there from the beginning, my overall thoughts about the gameplay are pretty much the same. I still feel like, it could get very monotonous with the combat sections, it could very much drag on during the story mode or like the dating sim sections, because I felt like I was just spending way too much time in one and not enough in the other, or just like, again, there were just certain things that were just kind of blah in one section, and then in another it was just kind of like, it could have been a little bit better, it had some interesting stuff, but they never really expanded upon it or never really went further with it, and it kind of sucked because I wanted to see a balance of the two, and I never really got that throughout my entire experience with Sakura Wars. Now, in the dating sim section, you do get to have a little bit of exploration in other locations outside of just the theater that you start out with. It is kind of cool to see some of these other locations, meet up with some of the characters, and have these little interactions that better your relationships with them overall. That's totally fine. But even with doing all that stuff, it's just not really, again, there's not really a lot there, but also it doesn't have any sort of significant impact on other sections of the game. You don't get stronger with your characters, your teammates don't get stronger, you don't get any other like real bonuses from interacting with all these characters. It just feels like that style of gameplay or that stuff is just there, and that's it. Like, there's nothing more beyond that. I mean, for anybody that loves anime or loves these anime-style games that are like the dating sim or visual novel stuff, I mean, it's totally fine that you get these little cutscenes and little interactions and events, a lot of which are very goofy and kind of really, cater to that fan service type of crowd, and that's fine, but at least I would have loved to at least see more gameplay-like influence from those scenes. Like, give me more stuff to mess with in the combat or other stuff that allows me to explore other areas, different stuff that I feel like would add more for me putting the time into those interactions. I just didn't really get that with what was happening in Sakura Wars. Okay, now that we covered gameplay in Sakura Wars, let's actually get to the side content, the optional content, and all this other stuff outside of all that, because there's some stuff there, but it's not as plentiful as you would have hoped it'd be. As much as I was disappointed with the gameplay of Sakura Wars, I kept holding out for any interesting stuff towards the end. However, the extras and side content weren't as good as I'd hoped they were. There's multiple endings related to each of the girls that you interact with, mostly who Sejiro ends up together with by the end of the story. You have to make a few key decisions in certain chapters to change which ending that you get, but there's very little differences with the rest of the game between these choices. It's honestly not enough to make you want to replay the entire game over a few times just to see them all. Something else that stood out to me was how the side quests you complete reward you with collectibles called bromaids. These are special cards with pictures of all the girls in the game, but they also include special images of characters from past entries of the series. These would be neat to collect if they weren't the only thing that you get. Everything you do in the game rewards you with bromate cards, but that's it. It just feels so underwhelming to me. I would have rather gone something to help boost my abilities in combat, or a new mech, or anything along those lines. The bromates just don't do anything. Certain cutscenes have bonus images you can view in the menu after you've seen them in the story, but these aren't that rewarding either. You might catch a girl in the shower and get to keep an image of it, but there's no reason to go out of your way to do so, and that's honestly a shame. As a total experience, I was hoping Sakura Wars would have more substance to it beyond the story elements one might latch onto, but what I found here was shallow at best.
なんていうか、いろいろとありすぎて。
一筋縄ではいかない相手ばかりなのはよくわかったよ。
そうか。おっと、そういえば隊長さん、支配人が戻ってきたら部屋に来てくれってさ。
すみれさんが？わかった。すぐに行くよ。
Now let me mention that there is some bonus DLC that you get that gives you different costumes that are not only like swimsuits, but also costumes and outfits based off of older Sakura Wars characters from previous games in the series. That's totally fine and it's a good like nod to the rest of the series, that's cool, but other than that, you don't get anything else. The other thing I should mention is that there is a bonus minigame called Koi Koi, which is like a little side game, a little card game you can mess around with, and you can play against all the characters that you interact with. But again, there's like nothing much really that you get from doing that stuff, other than maybe more bromades and maybe just a couple extra pieces of dialogue, but there's nothing much else beyond that. There's nothing significant that you get from putting time into that, and it's really disappointing to see something like that in a game like Sakura Wars that could have really benefited from it. The only thing of real significance that I could really give props to, and even then it's just not really saying much, is the like training battles that you get that are just rehashes of the chapters that you just played. In order to access all those different battles, you have to complete the game at least once, or at least, you know, up to the final chapter, just so you could get all the battles unlocked. And even then, you don't really get much from completing those. You get more bromades. There's not like your mechs are going to get stronger. You don't get like other additional mechs from just completing all of those. Maybe you get a couple little, again, pieces of dialogue and maybe just extra bromades, but I wanted something more beyond that. I wanted something that either made my combat a little bit easier, gave me a whole new mech, a whole new aesthetic, you know, other stuff that I really could have used in the other portion of the game, because again, there's just not much there, and I really, again, so disappointed that they didn't really kind of go further with that type of stuff, or at least offer to give players more from completing those types of challenges. So after everything that I've said, can I recommend that you guys check out Sakura Wars on PlayStation 4? I honestly don't think that this game is for everybody. If you're someone that loves anime-styled games, or at least, you know, anime visual novel storytelling, maybe you'll get something out of this, and if you're a fan of Sakura Wars, chances are you're already probably going to check this game out. But for anybody else that doesn't know anything about the series, or just doesn't know anything about this style of game, this might not be for you. There's a lot really for you to kind of get over, or at least, you know, stick with before things start to click. I really wish that certain aspects of the game and certain aspects of the gameplay in general would be a little bit more rewarding, or at least, you know, give me more for putting much more time into them. But as it stands, unless you're really connecting with the characters and a lot of the different events and stuff that happens in the story, you're probably not going to get much out of playing through the game. While it is cool to see multiple endings depending on some of the decisions that you make, it still isn't enough, or at least isn't different enough to make me want to go through the game multiple times, especially with all my criticisms that I have of it.
惑いの中にいるのなら星をせーの勝利のポーズ決め
Anyway, people, those are my overall thoughts about Sakura Wars on PlayStation 4. Again, big thanks over to SEGA for sending me over the game to check out and review for all of you. This was a good excuse for me to get dressed up a little bit and look a little stylish for all of you in this video review. It's just, again, pretty fun. But as always, those are just my thoughts about the game. Let me know what you guys think about it down below in the comments section. Tell me, are you a fan of Sakura Wars? Do you like the series overall, or like any of the other like games that are part of the series? What are some of your favorite anime-based or anime-style games? Just overall, it could be any console and stuff. Tell me about all that stuff down below in the comments section. Thanks for watching this video, everyone. Go ahead and click the boxes on the side to see more videos and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to go visit my Patreon page for exclusive gaming content that I know you'll really love. Hope you have a chill day. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.